Tommy was a quiet 14-year-old boy who had always found solace in the strings of his guitar. He wasn't one to stand out in a crowd, and he preferred it that way. His world revolved around music, the only place where he truly felt like he belonged. His guitar wasn't anything fancy. It was old, the wood scratched and chipped from years of use. It had belonged to his father, who had passed it down to him as a token of love and encouragement. To Tommy, that guitar was priceless. It was the one thing that made him feel connected to his dad, even though he had never gotten to meet him. Tommy's family wasn't wealthy. His mother worked long hours at a small local diner, and they lived in a modest home in a quiet neighborhood. They didn't have much, but Tommy didn't mind. His father's guitar was more than enough for him. Music was his escape, his passion, and it gave him a sense of purpose in a world that often felt too loud and overwhelming. But when Tommy brought his old guitar to school one day, things took a turn. The moment he stepped into the schoolyard, the teasing started. The popular kids gathered around him, sneering at the worn-out guitar. "What is that thing? A relic from the Stone Age?" One of them laughed. "Does it even work?" Another chimed in, making Tommy feel smaller with every word. Tommy's struggles only grew as the teasing intensified. Every time he brought his guitar to school, the mocking voices grew louder. It felt like the guitar was a symbol of everything wrong with him, a reminder he didn't belong. Each taunt chipped away at his confidence. The guitar that once brought him joy now felt like a burden. The whispers and laughter followed him wherever he went, and Tommy began to believe the cruel words. One day, a group of popular boys surrounded him. "Nice guitar, Tommy," Jake sneered. He grabbed the guitar, showing it off to the others, who laughed. "Do you even know how to play?" Ethan mocked as he tossed it back carelessly. The laughter echoed in Tommy's ears. Sarah joined in, telling him to throw it away. Tommy's heart sank. He tried to ignore them, but the mockery was unbearable. The worst moment came when his teacher, Mrs. Monroe, called on him to play in front of the class. Tommy's hands shook, and he feared the mocking would start again. Despite his nerves, he stood and began to play, but it wasn't the music he dreamed of sharing. It was a mess, and the laughter followed. Lunchtime was the hardest part. He retreated to his spot by the oak tree, guitar beside him, unable to leave it behind. He didn't feel like playing, but it was the one thing that still mattered to him. Just as the weight of the teasing settled over him, he noticed a man standing nearby, watching him with kind eyes, offering him a chance to escape the judgment. "You play?" the man asked, his voice soft and friendly. Tommy blinked, surprised that anyone would approach him, let alone ask about his guitar. Tommy hesitated. His first instinct was to brush him off, to ignore him like he did everyone else. But something in the man's eyes made him pause. It wasn't mocking or curious in the way others had looked at him. There was genuine interest there, a kindness that made Tommy feel less like an outcast. "Hey, yeah," Tommy answered, his voice almost a whisper, "but I'm not very good." The man smiled, a warm, reassuring smile that made Tommy feel a little lighter. "I don't think you need to be good to play, you just need to enjoy it. Mind if I listen?" Tommy's heart skipped a beat. Could this man really want to listen to him? Could he be different from the others who had only ever mocked him for his love of music? Still unsure, Tommy picked up the guitar, his fingers lingering on the strings as his nerves crept back up. What if this man was just another person out to laugh at him? But the warmth in the stranger's eyes gave him just enough courage to nod. "Okay," Tommy said quietly, "but I'm not really good enough to play for anyone yet." The man chuckled softly. "I promise, you'll never know unless you try." He sat down a little farther away, giving Tommy space, but still watching with that same kind smile. Tommy strummed a chord, still unsure of himself, but somehow, this stranger made him feel like it was okay to just be who he was. As Tommy began to strum his guitar, his fingers shaking from nerves, he noticed the man's warm smile never faltered. The quiet, encouraging presence was oddly comforting, but Tommy still couldn't shake the nagging feeling that maybe he was about to be mocked again. Maybe this was all just some elaborate trick. But then, just as Tommy was about to strum another chord, the stranger spoke again, his voice now familiar, almost soothing. "You know," the man said, "I used to get teased for my music too. People didn't understand why I wanted to be an actor. They thought I was crazy. But I stuck with it, because it was my passion." Tommy paused, looking up at the stranger. There was something in his voice, a deep sense of understanding, that made Tommy feel even more at ease. But it was when the man took off his baseball cap, revealing his face, that Tommy's world seemed to stop. The moment felt surreal. The man, no, the stranger, was none other than Johnny Depp. Tommy's eyes widened in disbelief. Johnny Depp, the famous actor, the one he had seen in movies, the one everyone admired, was sitting right in front of him. Tommy's breath caught in his throat, and for a second he thought he might be dreaming. "Wait, are you really him?" Tommy stammered, barely able to believe what he was seeing. Johnny smiled, his gaze still warm and kind. "Yeah, I guess you could say so. But right now, I'm just a guy who loves music, just like you." He chuckled softly. "And I'm not here to make fun of you, not at all." Tommy shook his head, trying to process what was happening. "But, why would you want to listen to me play? I'm nothing special. My guitar is just old and everyone else thinks it's a joke." He gestured to the worn-out instrument, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I don't even know if I'm good enough." Johnny leaned in slightly, his eyes never leaving Tommy's. "The thing is," he said, "music, art, they're not about being perfect. It's not about what people think, or how things look on the outside. It's about the heart behind it. Your guitar, it's been through a lot, but that's what makes it beautiful. The stories it carries, the music it helps create, it's all in the feeling. You've got to play for yourself, not for anyone else." Tommy felt a lump form in his throat. Johnny's words hit deep, striking a chord with the part of Tommy that had always felt inadequate, always felt like he had to hide his true self. But Johnny's eyes, those deep knowing eyes, showed no judgment. Instead they reflected understanding, and for the first time Tommy felt seen. With a gentle movement, Johnny reached for Tommy's guitar. "May I?" he asked, his voice quiet, but filled with respect. Tommy nodded, almost in a daze, and handed over the guitar. Johnny took it with ease, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. Without hesitation, he began to play. The sound that filled the air was nothing like Tommy had ever heard before. Johnny's fingers moved with grace, each note ringing out clearly, effortlessly creating a melody that made Tommy's heart race. The music was beautiful, so beautiful that it seemed to put everything else on pause. The teasing, the bullying, all the pain Tommy had felt in the last few days faded into the background, as Johnny's music washed over him. For a moment, it was just the two of them. Tommy, with his old guitar, and Johnny with the kind of mastery that made it clear this wasn't just about skill. It was about passion. It was about connecting through something real. Tommy watched, captivated, as Johnny's hands danced across the guitar, his playing smooth and soulful. And for the first time, Tommy truly understood what it meant to feel the music. When Johnny finished, he looked up at Tommy, his expression soft. "You see? It's not the guitar that matters, it's what you bring to it. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." Tommy's chest tightened as he processed Johnny's words. He had always believed his guitar was nothing special, but Johnny had shown him something different, that it wasn't the guitar's appearance or condition that made it valuable. It was the music it could create, the emotions it could carry. And in that moment, Tommy realized that he was worthy of playing, of sharing his music with the world. Johnny handed the guitar back to Tommy, offering him a smile that was more than just friendly. It was encouraging, almost as if he was passing on a torch that Tommy was now ready to carry. "You've got this, kid," Johnny said softly, before standing up to leave, disappearing into the crowd as quietly as he had appeared. Tommy sat there, guitar in hand, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, but Tommy could barely hear it over the noise of his classmates. As he slowly stood up, clutching his guitar, he noticed that the students who had once mocked him were now gathering around, their faces filled with awe. Whispers of admiration rippled through the crowd as they looked at him in a way Tommy had never experienced before. It wasn't the usual judgmental sneers, but something else: respect. "Did you see that?" one of the boys from the popular group said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "That was Johnny Depp, and he played your guitar." Tommy's heart pounded. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Just moments ago, these same people had laughed at him for playing an old piece of junk, but now they were seeing the guitar, and him, through a completely different lens. A girl from his class, Megan, looked at him with wide eyes. "That was amazing," she said, almost in awe. "I never knew you could play like that. That guitar, it's not just some old thing, it has real soul." Tommy didn't know how to respond. His emotions were a whirlwind, but the shift in how they viewed him was undeniable. Johnny Depp had somehow turned everything around,
without even trying. Johnny's warmth and humility had worked like magic. He didn't act like a celebrity, he wasn't boastful, and he didn't make a spectacle of himself. He had simply shared his love for music, and in doing so, he had opened the eyes of everyone around him, including Tommy.
As the crowd began to disperse, Johnny, noticing Tommy's hesitance, walked over to him with a smile. "Hey," he said. "I'm really glad I got to hear you play. You've got something special. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." Tommy blinked, feeling a lump form in his throat. Johnny was still talking to him, still offering words of encouragement. "Don't let the opinions of others hold you back. Keep playing for yourself. Keep playing because you love it." Then, to Tommy's surprise, Johnny reached into his pocket and pulled out a small guitar pick, worn and smooth from use. "Here," he said, holding it out to Tommy. "I used this while I was playing. Keep it with you. It's a reminder to never stop following your passion for music." Tommy felt tears well up in his eyes. This simple gesture, the kindness in Johnny's eyes, and the gift of the guitar pick meant more to him than he could ever put into words. It was a moment of pure connection, of realizing that he was worthy of his passion, no matter what anyone else thought. As Johnny walked away, Tommy looked down at the guitar pick, his hands trembling slightly. For the first time in a long while, he felt confident. He knew now that his worth wasn't tied to what others thought of him. It was about staying true to himself and his music, just like Johnny had shown him. With the pick safely tucked into his pocket, Tommy strummed his guitar, the familiar sound now bringing him a sense of pride. The journey wasn't going to be easy, but he was ready. For the first time, Tommy felt like he truly belonged, not because of the approval of others, but because he had found his own worth. And that was all that mattered. The next morning, Tommy walked into school with a newfound sense of purpose. The halls, which once felt cold and unwelcoming, now seemed different. As he made his way to his locker, he noticed the students around him weren't sneering or whispering behind his back. In fact, they were looking at him, some with curiosity, others with admiration. Megan, the girl who had once ridiculed his guitar, smiled at him as he passed by. "Hey, Tommy," she said, her voice warm. "That was really cool what Johnny Depp did for you yesterday. You've got something special. Keep playing, okay?" Tommy's heart swelled with pride, but he didn't let the praise go to his head. He had learned that it wasn't about seeking approval from others, it was about being true to himself and his passion. During lunch, Tommy took his guitar out of its case without hesitation. He found a quiet spot near the same oak tree where Johnny had sat with him the day before. As he began to play, the sound of the old guitar filled the air, but this time it was different. There was no nervousness in his fingers, no doubt in his mind. He played with confidence, letting the music speak for itself. The students who had once mocked him gathered around, this time with genuine interest, their eyes focused on the guitar. No one laughed, no one made fun of him. Instead, they listened, captivated by the way Tommy played, his fingers moving with ease and passion. They didn't see the old worn-out guitar anymore. They saw Tommy's heart in every note he played. As he finished his song, a few students clapped. It wasn't the loud, forced applause of an after-school talent show. It was real, it was respectful, and it made Tommy realize just how far he had come. Tommy's emotional growth was evident. He no longer felt the need to hide his love for music, nor did he worry about how others saw him. He knew now that his worth wasn't determined by the opinions of others or the condition of his guitar. It was about the music he created, the passion he poured into it, and the authenticity with which he lived his life. Johnny Depp's kindness had sparked a change in Tommy, but it didn't stop there. The ripple effect of that one moment spread throughout the school. Tommy's courage to be himself inspired others who felt out of place or different. Slowly, the atmosphere at school began to shift. People became more accepting, more understanding. The teasing stopped, and the walls between students began to fade. Tommy wasn't just the shy, quiet kid with the old guitar anymore. He had become an inspiration, a symbol of how staying true to who you are, even in the face of ridicule, could lead to something beautiful. He knew he wasn't alone anymore. There were others out there who felt just like him. And now, Tommy was ready to show them that it was okay to be different. It was okay to embrace what made you unique. Johnny Depp's visit had been a turning point, but Tommy knew that the real power lay in the lessons he had learned. He wasn't just playing for himself anymore. He was playing for everyone who needed to hear that they were enough, just as they were.
Tommy sat at the front of the class, his guitar resting comfortably in his hands, the familiar feeling of the strings beneath his fingers now a source of pride. The teasing had stopped, replaced by silent respect from his classmates. They no longer saw the old guitar, they saw him, the music he played and the bravery he showed. As Tommy played his final note, he smiled softly to himself. It wasn't about being perfect or fitting in, it was about being true to who he was. He thought back to the day Johnny Depp had changed his life, and he couldn't help but feel grateful.
Thank you for joining us on Tommy's journey, from being teased and misunderstood to finding his true worth. This story reminds us that no matter where we come from or what others say about us, our true value comes from within. Tommy's bravery and the kindness of a stranger changed his life forever, and we hope it inspired you as much as it inspired him. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with others who might need a little encouragement. And if you want more heartfelt stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notification. Your support means the world to us.